jump up, people, are you ready?
Hello everyone and welcome again to On Tour. It's the cricket program where we look back at the West Indies versus Sri Lanka series. The T20s are done and dusted, and at the end, it's West Indies 2, Sri Lanka 1. I'm Barry Wilkinson. Thank you so much for joining us. The third T20 being played at Coolidge. The West Indies and Sri Lanka, the series was leveled at 1-1. Both teams had a lot to play for. Let's look at the scorecard and see how things ended up there at Coolidge. A very exciting end again. Sri Lanka, 131 for 4, yet again, winning the toss, electing to bat, and in their 20 overs with Dinesh Chandimal making 54 not out, and Ashin Bandara 44 not out. In fact, the score was 46 for 4, and these two took the total to 131 without further loss. I thought they should have scored at least 20 more runs in an 85-run partnership. We saw wickets apiece to Allen, Sinclair, Holder, and McCoy. And then when the West Indies batted, they made 134 for 7 in 19 overs. That looks like if they got home comfortably. But Fabian Allen struck 3 sixes in that 19th over and made it quite exciting for the West Indies. Simmons earlier, top scorer of the 26. Nicholas Pooran made a pugnacious 23. And Allen's 21 not out was indeed his man of the match performance. Excellent catch he took as well. And he had an impact at the beginning and the end of the match. Lewis, he earlier made 21. And Jason Holder, he made 14 not out in a very subdued performance, but he was very responsible as well. Sandakaran, 3 for 29. And Hasaranga, 2 for 13. So the important thing is there for the West Indies that they actually made it through. They actually won. But it was drama, indeed a lot of drama. A bowler was again on a hat trick. The West Indies needed someone to hit some sixes. They had some luck with a no ball being called at the right time. And it was Fabian Allen with the impact from the first ball of the match right down to the last ball of the game. Let's join our panel. Of course, we have former West Indies and Ghana Captain Sir Clive Lloyd. And we also have our international correspondent, the BBC's Johnny Barron, and the very pugnacious man himself, the former Barbados and West Indies opening batsman, Philo Alfonso Wallace. Gentlemen, I'll start with you first, Philo. The West Indies winning 2-1, that must give them some confidence going forward now in T20s.
Yes, Barry. West Indies are winning 2-1. They held their own. They some deep breaths. And obviously, they struggled to get up to that 132. But in the end, they made it through some brave hitting from Allen. So it's something that they can build on to move forward. We've also seen some deficiencies, which they should be looking to correct as soon as possible.
Johnny, the West Indies, in terms of their opening stand and their power hitting against the spin, has not been very good. And I think that might have, if anything, set them back a little bit last night.
Yes, I think the West Indies did really well last night. I think they learned to take the pace off the ball when they had the ball in hand. And I think with the bat as well, they were pretty effective throughout the course of the game. And the key factor was that the cool, calm head of Jason Holder at the end and the power hitting of Fabian Allen got them home in the end.
I'll go straight to Clive first with my first question. We look at the West Indies bowling. How good was their bowling last night to contain the Sri Lankans on a pitch that obviously was not as good or in terms of flat and placid as the last couple of pitches we've seen? This one was much slower. How well did the West Indies bowl?
I thought they bowled very well, especially the spinners. They didn't push the ball through. They turned it a bit. They flighted it quite well. I think it was a very good exhibition by the spinners. And yes, I thought they did extremely well. But I think that we still shouldn't be struggling, these small totals. And it's not that, all right, they have good spinners and so on, but still we can still knock it around, I think Jason realized that too. He batted very intelligently. We know he's a top-class batter. And Fabian came at the end and he did his stuff. So it was quite exciting because from the first program we had here, I told you the viewing would be compelling, and it was last night.
Yeah, I think you call that correct. Philo, a lot has been made about the fielding of the West Indies. We saw some blunders earlier, but generally, were you happy with the fielding? Because the coach, Phil Simmons, tends to think that once you field well in T20s, you come and bring that kind of adrenaline into the batting.
Yeah, but Barry, the fielding was okay. We have Trevor Penny, who is a fielding consultant for the white ball leg of this tour. And when you look at the fielding, you can see some slight improvements. I would still like to see our fielders sliding and diving, and that is not happening. We're taking some nice catches, but I think generally the fielding was okay. I believe that according to the late great Sir Everton Weeks, when you catch and feel well, you should bat well. So Phil Simmons has a point, but I am not saying it's batting well because we're feeling okay, but our batting certainly is not that well as it should be when you have that hand-eye coordination when it comes to fielding.
You know, Johnny, we speak a lot about the West Indies bowling and their fielding, and sometimes forget how Sri Lanka managed to crawl out of some serious dark holes. They were definitely in one last night, and one of their most experienced batsmen, Dinesh Chandimal, who has not really come to the party so far. We've seen a lot of Nisaraka, but he hasn't come to the party. But last night, he showed some responsibility. But did he bat too slow? Because from 46 for 4 to 131 without further loss, you tend to feel that the Sri Lankans did not score as many as they should have.
Barry, yes, I think it was a pretty good effort actually from a Sri Lankan point of view. Bear in mind they were 46 for 4, as you rightly pointed out, halfway through the 10th over, and then actually they got 85 off the last 10 overs. So there's a fair bit of acceleration. I think the West Indies will probably be disappointed that they didn't really end up chasing a total of around about sort of 90, 100 maybe, with the control they exerted in the first part of the innings. But I thought it was a good acceleration. I think Angelo Matthews said at the end he would have liked 15 or 20 more. But I think 131, considering the hole they were in, was a pretty good recovery.
So, Clive, how good is Fabian Allen? He was given the opportunity to open the bowling last night. He really pegged things back, a very controlled spell, just 13 runs off of his bowling, and he took a spectacular catch. Tell me about this young man from Jamaica.
Well, I think he's learned a bit by playing the IPL, and I think he's a very good fielder. I've seen him, strike the ball around the place. But yesterday he bowled extremely well, varied his pace. He sort of tossed it up when he had to, and it turned, and I must say a little bit of turn yesterday, so that helped them. But the variety of balls that they bowled were quite good, quite exciting, and that set the Sri Lankans back because they were probably looking for somewhere around 60 or 70 in the first 10 overs. But the spin bowlers, sort of pegged them back.
All right, look, you're watching On Tour. When we come back, how the West Indies batted and how they chased down this total of 132 to win. Stay with us.
Put up your hand, it's time to party. Turn it up to the top, it's time to jump up. People, are you ready? Windies in the land, just put up your hand, it's time to...
Welcome back then to On Tour. The West Indies 2, Sri Lanka 1. That's how the T20s finished. Don't forget, right here live on FlowSports will be the 50 overs. The ODIs start on Wednesday morning, 9:30 in the morning, of course, Eastern Caribbean time, 8:30 for our friends there in Jamaica. So let's look at the West Indies now, how they batted, how they approached this total of 132. Philo, we continue to see that Evan Lewis, once they're spin on early, he's not as fluent. When he got out last night, he had a chance early because the ball before, he was given a reprieve, and then he did the very same thing. Is he not learning from playing the spin early on in his innings, Evan Lewis?
I think you've answered the question, Barry. He's not learning at all. Because he swept at the ball before he was dismissed. And luckily for him, the ball was pitched marginally outside the leg stump. And I thought the length of the delivery meant to sweep first was a bit too far, too back pitch. And then he came down to a fuller delivery and executed the same shot. And he was given out LBW. Is Evan Lewis learning? No. And I would like Evan Lewis to understand that he's a much better batsman than what we have seen in these tests.
Yes.
These are T20 games. If he knocks the ball down the ground to long on and long off, he gets into a rhythm and then he can then look to sweep. But the first thing he's looking to do is picking up his bat to sweep the ball rather than knock the ball down the ground. And that is a big weakness. And Evan is also in our one-day squad. And I believe he will open the batting. And this is something that he needs to learn and learn quickly because the Sri Lankans are going to go throw spin at us at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. So Lewis just needs to go back into the nets with a batting consultant and get him to understand he has to hit the ball down the long on and long off and get momentum first before he flexes those big muscles. And I just want to know how fit is he as well, because he doesn't look all of that fit.
Well, he passed the yo-yo test. That's that much I can tell you. I come to you, Johnny Barron. Lendl Simmons, top scorer with 26, but his dismissal was ill-timed, and according to the commentators then, it was indeed almost embarrassing. Your thoughts on his dismissal?
Yeah, it was a bit of a sucker blow, wasn't it, as far as the West Indies concerned? They've just got through a really good power play, 53 for 1. They controlled the game at that point. And you have to say, actually, Sri Lanka probably let them off the hook in the early stage of the game by not bowling Hasaranga early enough. But Lendl Simmons came out, didn't he, when Hasaranga was in the attack, skipped down the track, I should say, and missed the ball. And at that stage in the innings, they just needed a solid 5 or 6 overs just to deal with Hasaranga, and you feel the game would have been done. But that was just another twist in what was an extraordinary tale.
So, Clive, even though the Sri Lankans lost, they seem to be doing their homework, spin early to the openers, peg them back somewhat, and when Kairinpala comes up to bat, do not give him any length balls or half volleys. And the plan was last night to attack him, and they did that, and it worked. Have they found out the secret to getting Kairinpala out, Sir Clive Lloyd?
Well, I think that it's obvious that they're doing their homework because our guys are starting well and then just giving away the wickets, really. I didn't see the need to play some of those shots. Hit the ball down the ground. It's not 9 and over. And it's some of them still not picking the spinners. So they're finding it difficult to play shots because they're playing it off the pitch. So I think they now have a lot more overs to bowl to us in the 50 overs game. So the point is we will have to bat more intelligently and try and get people there who understand that you can knock the ball on the ground. That guy, the captain Chandamal, 50 odd. He had 1-6. I can't remember. But the point is, they hit the ball on the ground. We've got to learn to do so.
Philo and all of the panel, I put this question to you: should Chris Gayle be playing in this T20 team? Is it time for him to retire? I say that based on how he got out last night. I'll get this question coming to all three of you gentlemen. Philo, first with you.
Well, Barry, a couple of years ago, I thought Chris Gayle would have said he's retired. And I thought he said he was going to retire and move on, but then he reversed that decision. And our lead selector, Roger Harper, with a policy that they have for Cricket West Indies seems to be an open door policy, and age doesn't matter. But when you look at Chris Gayle in these three T20 games, and I said it at the start of this program, this is not franchise T20. This is international T20, where the intensity and the pace is going to be a lot quicker. And if you look at these young men from Sri Lanka, they're not afraid of a Chris Gayle. So it's up to Chris Gayle to really take a look at himself and say, look, do I have the wheels to really continue and press on for West Indies? He would love to play in the third World Cup, but he has to be brutally honest with himself and say, look, can I manage this workload? That workload in those international T20s is a lot more cumbersome and heavier than the franchise cricket. So it's up to Gayle, Jimmy Adams, and lead selected Roger Harper, along with head coach Phil Simmons. The four of those guys didn't sit down and ask Chris Gayle brutally honest question. Are you willing to retire? Can you take our cricket forward? If you're not willing, thank you. And just give him a good send-off.
Your thoughts, Johnny Barron?
It's very difficult, isn't he? He's one of the grand old stages of the T20 game and of that West Indies side, of course, a veteran of 2 World Cup wins. It's a difficult one for the West Indies selectors. And I think when it boils down to it, if you look at the ICC World Cup back in 2019, Chris Gayle came into that tournament with good form and looking in good touch. 2 years on now, he has got a bit of franchise cricket to come in the likes of the IPL. There are 15 matches to go between now and the World Cup for the West Indies. It just depends whether the West Indies are going to go on that journey with Chris Gayle or without him.
And so, Clive Lloyd, your thoughts on this particular point should certainly leave someone quoting you. Tell me what you think.
Well, I think the point is you have to look at the situation at 41. If you're not making the scores you expect, do we stick with you? I looked at the stats and they said he hadn't made a 50 for the past 5 years. So they'll have to sit down and say, well, right. do we have a youngster or youngsters that can fit into this role? Sometimes you're right. You're right to have this guy off at your peril, because he can come back and probably sort of, win you a game. But the point is that what's happening now, that we're playing against a test side. They have 5 or 6 test class bowlers. This is not IPL where you might have 2 or 3 youngsters who might be afraid of him. Here you have test players, and they would want to get Chris Gayle out. I think yesterday he was beaten for pace, so they'll have to look at all those things. And I think I agree with Phil. They have to sit down and say, well, listen, because, these guys will want to play as long as possible, but you have to be brutally honest and say, well, listen, I don't think you're cutting it, in the sense that, fielding and your batting has been a little sub-normal, if you want to call it that. But the point is, they have to discuss with him, because he's been a top-class player for us. But then he's got to understand too, that at 41 you can't be making 16 and 15 and 12. You need you have to make more runs than that. And I think it's a situation which it's up to the selectors to have a word with him, because he's been a great servant for us.
Now, Puran got off to a little bit of a start. We also saw Powell and Bravo get up quickly. In fact, the bowler was on a hat trick. Then we saw the heroics of Fabian Allen, 3 sixes. But before that, Jason Holder was lucky to get a no ball. Do you think, gentlemen, that was the turning point of the game right there? That no ball, that free hit, that Holder was able to hit for 6, and then the West Indies were able to capitalize upon Allen. Your thoughts on that, Philo Wallace?
Yeah, well, I thought that at that stage of the game, it was still in the balance. It could have gone either way. And then the slow bowler no ball. And he's an off spinner. He was trying to bowl leg breaks, which I thought was quite ludicrous. And obviously with that free hit, and it was a full toss, it released all of that pressure that was built up on Jason Holder. And he just took the full toss and he knocked it for 6. And you saw a sigh of relief when he hit that 6. So that momentum shifted with that 6 hit into West Indies' favour. And then we saw what Fabian Allen came and what he had done. And it was fantastic, his 21 from 6 balls or 8 balls. But I thought that full toss have really given West Indies a chance. And they did took it. And congratulations to West Indies. Jason played, with common sense, as expected. And we expect Jason to do these things often, not in between. And I would say that he took the opportunity and it led West Indies to victory.
We're looking at those 6s now from Fabian Allen. Is he underrated, Philo Wallace?
I don't know if he's underrated. I think he's a sporadic performer, just like all the rest. Because he went down and told Jason, "Look, I can't read this guy." He was honest there,
yes.
But then he took it upon himself to say, "Look, I'm going the next over. I'm going to take it," and he took it well, and he used the opportunity for some bad bowling again, and just knocked it away. I don't think he's underrated. I just think if everybody wants to know what this left-arm spinner can really do. I thought he bowled well up front with his 4 overs. He bowled 4 for 13, fantastic. And then he came in, lower down in the order, and he knocked the ball away. We saw him in the previous T20 going higher, and he didn't look the part. But now we see him down in the bottom. And with Jason Holder, who showed common sense, he obviously won the game for it. So I think he has those kind of performances in him, but we want to see consistency from Fabian Allen.
Yeah, well said. West Indies then getting home with those 3 sixes in the over there, and they won the match by some 3 wickets. When we come back right here on tour, we're going to hear from the man of the match, Fabian Allen. Don't you move.
Put up your hand, it's time to party. Turn it up to the top, it's time to jump up. People, are you ready? Windies in the land, just put up your hand.
So we're back for the last lap of On Tour for the T20s before we get ready for the 50 overs. And like I said, Fabian Allen, the obvious man of the match, brilliant catch, 1 wicket, fielded well, bowled well, and indeed he saw the West Indies home. Let's hear from him about his performance.
We haven't seen you in this series bowl in the power play and bowl as many overs as you did today. Was that a role that you embrace?
Yes, definitely. I prepare for everything. So this keeper said, Fabian, look, you have to bowl in the power play. So I just back myself and just execute.
What was different about your bowling today? Was it the manner in which the ball was coming out, or did you get some assistance from the pitch as well?
Well, definitely, pitch is very slow, so I just look to execute my plan. So and it worked today. So
At the halfway stage, what was the mood like in your team, eyeing up a fairly easy run chase?
well, when I look at the dressing room, we have quite a bit power, a lot of power, and they're very experienced. But about myself, I know that I can win games. I just execute.
Many of us are curious to find out about the conversation that you had with Jason Holder when he decided to face all the deliveries in that 18th over. Care to share that conversation and the reasons?
Yeah, I said I'm not comfortable batting him, so I tell Jason Holder, so look, you have to block him out, and then I will do the finishing.
And again, when you had that equation of 20 runs to score of the last 2 overs, were you always confident of you scoring those runs?
Yes, definitely. When you look back how I play in the CPL, I used to this, so I just back myself and just execute.
So, gentlemen, it's now on to the 50 overs, the ODIs. The captain will remain the same. The team just changes just a little bit. But if you had to review these T20s, Philo, and you look forward now to the 50 overs, do you think the West Indies will have the confidence to do well in the 50 over series?
Well, Barry, they have to take confidence of winning the T20. Mind you, they've won it on the scruff of their neck. So they did show that depth and durability to come out of adverse positions. Now the 50 over game is going to be 300 legal balls. Those spin bowlers don't have no 4 overs to bowl. They have 10 overs apiece. And they're playing on a bigger
40.
venue, which is the 40. They're playing on a bigger venue, the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. So the chances that they took at Coolidge in the T20s, I can't see them taking those same chances at Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. They will have to look, as Sir Clive Lloyd keeps saying, knock the ball down the ground and do more running in those 50 over games. And I would like to see our captain Pollard set himself in the batting order at number 5, high win or low win, and bat at number 5 and let the team bat around him. I don't want to see our captain moving up and down that order at all. I would like to see a settled position for him in these 3 ODIs and let him bat from there and work the team around him.
Your thoughts, Johnny Barron?
Yeah, I think that this has been an intriguing T20 series, hasn't it? Played in dusty conditions in Antigua, the kind of conditions actually you probably find in somewhere like Gaul and Colombo. And somehow the West Indies have snuck through, largely because they've hit more sixes than the opposition, despite the opposition taking 19 wickets out of 23 with spin. I expect more of the same from Sri Lanka as they go into that 50 over pattern of games that played at the Viv Richards Stadium. And you feel actually with the spin they have available, they really will be a handful across the 50 over format. But the West Indies have got through this test. It's just a question whether they can go on and stretch out their batting in the longer format of the game. Fascinating contest, you feel again.
Sir Clive Lloyd, the last word with you.
Well, I think it will be interesting because they'll have more spin being bowled to them, and it's how they operate. We seem to be playing. I watched the 50 over. We're still playing it like a 20 over game. They have a lot of overs to go, and people still getting out with some airy-fairy shots. I would like to see them bat more intelligently in the sense that if you're in, you stay in. Try and get big scores. And I go back to Clyde Walcott's saying, bat long. The point is that we're giving away our wickets. They're not getting us out. The fast bowler, is it Chimar or Chimar? He's bowling extremely well. He's beating them for pace, and he's getting better. He's getting, so that's another backup where the fast bowling is concerned. So it's going to be quite enthralling. It's going to be exciting again. It's a bigger ground, and I hope we should think that we have to hit the ball on the ground, and we have to make more runs. The other thing is our batting order seems to be up and down. No, it doesn't seem to be settled, and I think we need to get that sorted out too. So it's going to be quite interesting, I must say.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. Philo Wallace, Johnny Barron, and indeed Sir Clive Lloyd. I want to thank you guys. Of course, on tour, we'll be back on Thursday. The West Indies again play on Wednesday. and that, of course, is in the 50 over series. We'll be here live on Flow Sports. You can catch all the action then. I'm Barry Wilkinson. Bye-bye for now.
Jump up, people, are you ready?